Hello, welcome back to the Exvangelical Bible Study. I am Sarah from Leaving Faith, and of course, my co-host Justin from Deconstruction Zone. Hi, Justin.
Hey Sarah, I'm thrilled to be continuing Genesis, and
We're
today
gonna finish it. I feel like it. We're gonna do it.
we're so close. We're going to be getting through what most people probably skipped over. Do you remember reading this as a Christian? This part?
No, of course not. Well, to be fair, I think I did read about like the blessing with the hands, like the crossed hands. I don't remember the apologetic for it, but I would have skipped over like all of these blessings for his sons. And for our listeners, if you remember, Jacob is always like a drama queen. He loves the drama and he brings it in these blessings too. He does not let us down in his final days.
He really is a diva, isn't he? Like,
hmm
remember when he opened up the well? How the story is like, big strong man opens up the well that takes 5 people. Okay,
Oh, Jacob loves himself some Jacob.
that seems to be the case. But
Ah,
hey, how
our
else are you going to impress the ladies if you don't show off how strong and masculine you are, right?
It's true. I don't know what else he would do. He doesn't have a lot of other talents.
True. Yeah, I mean, think about his redeemable skills up to now. Does look, I don't know a whole lot.
Yeah. Oh, checkers.
He's good at playing
Uh,
tricks.
yeah, seriously. He did hard labor for a while,
Mm,
he's got that.
indeed.
All right. So we are near the end of Jacob's life. They are realizing he's about to die. So Joseph says, "Hey, here are my sons. I need you to give them a blessing." Jacob's like, "Great, I'll do that for you." He basically says, "I'm adopting these sons as my own sons," or like, which is weird. Um, but whatever. And then in verse 7, he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, Rachel died."
Oh,
Oops.
oh yeah, about that.
Okay.
They really cared about her a lot in the story, eh?
Right? Yeah, key role here for Rachel. I mean, at least he says, oh, well, in mine, oh man. So in your version, it doesn't say anything like editorial about it, but in my version, Jacob is saying, as I was returning from Padan, Rachel died in the land of Canaan. We were still on the way, just a short distance from Ephrath. So with great sorrow, I buried her there. At least they added some sorrow.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's not remotely included in the NRSV updated edition. I wonder where that rhetorical flourish is coming from. I'm curious if that's like an addition from the Greek Septuagint or
Mm.
from an alternative text that they just chose not to use.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, talk about like trying to make Jacob look a little better, right? Like, well, at least he's sad that his wife died.
I mean, that could you imagine if the story, how if you're really devoted to this book, how disappointing that would be. You want to rehabilitate that image somehow, right?
Well, and he's supposed to love Rachel. I mean, sometimes he treats her badly, but the whole thing is like he's supposed to be actually in love with her.
Yeah, and I just looked open in the BHS for the Hebrew text, and that edition's not in there. It just reads exactly like it does in all these English translations, which is that I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. End of story. The NLT is like straight up making new stuff up.
It did. It made something up.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
I don't
Uh,
know. Yeah, maybe they couldn't handle the fact that Jacob wasn't sad about it.
yeah, you know what? This is what I keep on live stream. I keep mentioning to people when they ask me about translations. It's not that like all these translations are either better or worse because of the skill level of the translator. this isn't a skill issue. This is clearly someone made a decision to insert something in the text. This is what it's not because they were stupid or they weren't educated. They said, "Oh, this is something I want in there," and they put it in there.
Yeah, I mean, the entire idea of infallibility through translation completely falls apart, and
Yeah.
there's absolutely no way an English speaking reader could determine any of that without speaking the original language. You know, you are completely at the mercy of the translator. And yeah, the idea of there being different ways to interpret something is really, really difficult, I think, for Christians who hold this infallibility. Because if, if the text is ambiguous, you have to make a translation choice, A or B, and they want there to be this is the right answer, right? Like, this is the translation that's perfectly correct. But of course, you know that it's more nuanced than that. And there are some places where there is no one correct answer. You have to decide, did they mean it this way or that way?
Yeah, and to your point, if God is making it so these texts are ambiguous, even to professionals, like people who actually study this stuff, then what chance do like normies have?
Oh, I make that point all the time when like Christians will say, "Oh no, you have to read the original text. Like you need to do a really deep dive, a deep study to get to the real meaning of it." Like, okay. So, almost no one then is going to know what it means.
No.
Like the average human being does not have the time or capacity to learn several languages for this purpose, devote years of study. Like, that's not a thing the vast majority of people can do.
No, and they shouldn't have to. If God
Right.
is an effective communicator, he could make the book clear. Um, I think the reason why this is such a vexing problem is when these texts were written, nobody expected them to be read as the mouthpiece of God. Like no one was saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, we're going to write a story and we're going to call this God's word." That's something that was later superimposed upon it, and it wasn't something that it was prepared to take.
Yeah. And I don't know how I could communicate that. Like, I think that's where you're going to have the biggest cognitive dissonance,
Mm,
right? Like,
mm-hmm.
no Christian is going to accept the sentence you just spoke.
True,
Yeah.
but I guess that's why we're not Christians.
It's true. Yeah. You
Mhm.
know, if you if you don't think this is the word of God, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. If you don't already believe it's the word of God, it's so easy to read it and see every problem.
Mhm.
It's just right there.
Yep. Yep, it sure is. And I had just someone in my DMs yesterday was saying they were trying to convince me to be a Christian. And, one of the first things they said was, there are no contradictions in the Bible that cannot be explained. And I was like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to believe that, like,
Mhm.
I don't think we can even have this conversation.
Right.
Like it's not, they're not going to be in the place to even consider the things I have to say.
Yeah, because they're just um, asserting that they know the future. Like, I know there's an answer for it and it's out there and you'll get it eventually or somebody will get it eventually. You don't know that. That's like saying, I know one day humans will fly. You don't know that. Like, that's ridiculous. Um,
Well, yeah, their assumption is that every potential contradiction has been identified and there is existing an apologetic for it, and that all these
right.
apologetics are strong.
They're not
But
good.
of course, no, no. It's like when you know, it only works if you really, really want to believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to already believe it for any of it to make sense. It's kind of like
Mhm.
remember when we were kids and like your parents told you something and you just believed it because your parents told you. You're like, my parents wouldn't lie to me, obviously. Um,
Right.
then you get older and you're like, oh yeah, they did fucking lie to me. I mean, maybe they meant well, but like they
Right.
certainly did lie to me or tell me things that were untrue, right? Like I feel like Christians are still in this rose-colored situation where they're like, well, God wouldn't lie. Like it's not that God wouldn't lie; it's that God doesn't exist. So yeah,
Yeah.
like if God doesn't exist, we're not saying he's a liar. We're just saying all this stuff is fiction.
Yeah. Well, to the fiction,
Mm.
um, the um, Jacob is now going to bring some interesting drama. There's so much drama with the
Oh my gosh, I
blessings.
know.
So he's going to bless Joseph's sons, and Joseph like sets the sons in front of him, and Jacob comes to bless them. And Jacob does like a little swappity doo and puts one hand on right, it's his right hand on the younger boy and then his left hand on the older boy. And it's a really big deal. And I want to ask more about that. But before I forget to say, like, what a great example of witchcraft. Like,
Yes, it is.
this idea that God will only bless a certain son in a certain way if the hand is on the correct place. But if you have your hand in the other place, God's magic is going to do something completely different. And it's literally due to how you place your hands. Like that's not a relationship with a God. That's a spell. Like
Yep.
you're doing a spell.
Couldn't agree more. And you've mentioned this quite a bit and it's always true. Like the minute you have to do something uber specific, like like you're saying, put your hand in the right place or utter the right magic words. Anytime you have to do any of that stuff, you're now in the realm of magic. You're not in the realm of theology anymore. Because
Yeah.
God would know the intention of your heart. He could just do the thing that is in your heart. But if the thing in your heart isn't good enough, you have to do these extra steps. Well, now you're in Magicville.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So this idea of like, um, I'm assuming there is like a religious expectation, but also like this cultural expectation about like blessing your sons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so can you tell me any more about like this whole tradition of a deathbed blessing? And is it like reading your will? Is that kind of what's happening?
Yeah, actually, so that's exactly it. They didn't have like a will in the ancient Near East. Like there were times like when somebody was ill, they would go to the courts and they actually would write out a will. Often it was done when you got married. So, for example,
Mm.
let's say late in life you already had children and you took on another wife or took on a concubine. Typically when you did such things, they would have future stipulations in it for what to do with the property, what to do with the food and belongings. And a lot of times these marriage contracts, so marriage contracts were common. People don't realize that. They were common in the ancient Near East, but they also dealt with the household matters. So for example, if you did a marriage contract, you might say, what if I die or if I get divorced, although they didn't say the word divorce. Typically, the marriage contracts would say, if I say to my wife, you are no longer my wife, or it'll say, if my wife says to me, you are no longer my husband. That's how they phrase divorce. But in the event, here's what would happen: this amount of property would
Mm.
go to my kids. Which kids? These kids. And this amount of food would be rationed out to my ex-wife. And people don't realize in the ancient Near East, it's way more merciful towards divorced women than what we find in the Bible. There's no provisions in the Bible for women that have been divorced. But if you look at the Code of Hammurabi and some of the Middle Assyrian law codes, you'll find that a lot of times women were cared for after they were divorced. And not only that, if you provided a son or a daughter for your husband prior to getting divorced, you were required to essentially pay alimony. You had to give a certain percentage of your estate and your earnings to take care of your ex-wife and your child. That was just
Hmm.
required by law. We have nothing of that nature in the Bible. In fact, remember when Abraham sends Hagar out? He like gives her a
Uh-huh.
loaf of bread and one skin of water and sends her into the freaking desert. The richest man in the land has like, here's a freaking loaf of bread and a bottle of water. Go figure it out. What a
Yep.
maniac.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being really angry about that passage.
So long story short, a lot of times this stuff would have already been dealt with during one of the
Okay.
marriage contracts. And if not, then typically what was left over, the stuff that wasn't part of a contract, would have just been done on the deathbed. But to be sure, there were occasions where somebody did have like a pre-death, here's what to do with my estate contract. It just wasn't a requirement. Like in America, we
Mhm.
expect somebody to have a will. It wasn't required in the ancient world. It was just kind of nice to have.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it would make sense then, yeah, like why this would be such an important ritual. Although it's interesting, I mean, Jacob is really like prophesying more than
Mm,
anything. Like this chapter and then in the next, he's basically, telling fortunes. Like, here's what's going to happen to you,
right.
um, which is fun. Maybe not practical, but fun.
Well,
Um,
the goal here, like we've seen so often in Genesis, is to explain the current state of affairs at the time of writing. Why is it that these individual tribes have this current situation? Well, I mean, obviously, because look at this blessing that Jacob gave them, right?
yeah, that's what I was assuming because, like, in this next passage, that Ephraim got like the younger brother is going to be greater, and the younger brother's descendants are going to be a multitude of nations, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was gonna to guess is that, yeah, this is retroactively like explaining why one is doing better than the other. This and the entire fate of this small, people group is because hands were switched. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's how it was all controlled. Hands were switched.
That's it. And take note of again this ongoing trend of like the younger brother getting the bigger blessing.
Mm.
So we saw Benjamin got the better blessing from Joseph. We see the younger brother, I'm sorry, the younger son of Joseph is going to get the blessing over his brother. Jacob got the blessing over his brother. Abel lost the blessing theoretically because he was murdered, and Cain was the one who overcame him. We have this long arc in the Bible of younger brothers getting blessed over the elder. And my theory, which is not my own, I think a lot of people in the academic community could reinforce this, but this arc is there because I think Judah sees itself as the younger brother to Israel, and Judah
Mhm.
was the one who eventually became the real successor of the Levantine region.
Man, it's like little brother energy throughout the whole document.
Yeah, but could you imagine if you're the little tribe of Judah with the little Benjamin next to you, and you're so much smaller than Israel, the 10 northern tribes, and they've been there before you, right? They rule this area. And then one day, the whole system collapses, the Assyrian army takes them off into captivity, and it's just you left standing. And then you get to rewrite the history over these northern tribes that you didn't like, by the way. I know we're related, but we didn't actually like you. um, like we weren't that friends. Surely you would see in like this meta narrative. It was like, oh yeah, well you didn't like you fucking beat us up because we were your little brother, but now look at us, right?
Oh my gosh, that's perfect for this Joseph story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's exactly it. Like, oh yeah, you made fun of me when I was small and a weakling. I'm big and strong now. Suck it, brothers.
Yep. And the it's funny you see some of this north and southern feuding going on, but like even Ephraim and Manasseh. This is why a lot of people will say, well, it seems like the patriarch of the north was Joseph. That seems to be the case, and possibly the patriarch of the south was Moses.
Mm,
Because the two most primary, in fact, the one most primary territory, Ephraim, comes from Joseph. This is really an explanation of how the most powerful northern tribe was established, was through
mhm.
Joseph. So if you talk to like critical scholars on patriarchs, a lot of them will suggest that the reason why the Joseph narrative seems to be representative of the Elohist redaction layer is because it's an old northern patriarchal narrative. Joseph seems to have been the leading patriarch of the northern tribes.
Hmm. I mean, that would make sense why then so much like physical space is devoted to him in the narrative.
Right.
He
Yep.
gets a lot of airtime.
And some scholars will disagree with this. I think the tide is turning. It used to be that people thought that the Yahwist narrative was older, and
Okay.
that the Elohist narrative was just after the Yahwist. There seems to be a changing of the guard right now, and I'm on board with it. I think the Elohist storyline is older, the storyline from the north. That I just think it was modified at an early stage by the Yahwists from Judea. But could be wrong. It's all speculation, but it's fun. Every time I read Genesis, all I can see is like a sibling feud between Judah and Israel.
I mean, that is the most of Genesis is sibling fighting. That is,
Right?
yep. Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
um yeah, I mean, so the blessing that Jacob gives is to specifically, yeah, put Ephraim. How did you say that? Ephraim?
It's funny. In America we say Ephraim, but it's actually pronounced Ephraim. I mispronounce it
Oh,
all the time.
okay. Ephraim. So at any rate, without really any justification from God, like Jacob doesn't give a reason why he's switching the blessings, just like, hey, I know I'm smart, like just trust me, man.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say that like God told him to do this or anything. He just does it and um and on we go. Um, the next chapter is written like a poem or like a song.
Mm.
In um my Bible. Like it's all versed.
Oh
Um
yeah.
oh yeah, like that.
Mm-hmm.
What does that indicate in the text when they're doing that?
So typically, when it does this type of a layout, they're exactly what you said. They're trying to indicate to you that this is kind of a poetic passage, and so what they'll not every translation will do it. What they'll try to do is to break it out in meter. Now, sometimes it happens this way only because like the manuscript will have it laid out in a particular fashion.
Mhm.
So, for example, there's a famous passage in Isaiah 8. This one right. Oop, I need to scroll way down. There we go. Isaiah 8. This little paragraph here, if you read it in the Hebrew manuscript, is actually it's like sectioned out. You can see that it's like an actual unit. Now, my
Mhm.
translation didn't do it that much justice. If you look at the Hebrew manuscript, it cuts it right here. O Emmanuel is the beginning of the section, not the ending of the
Okay.
prior section. But so there are definitely instances where they're just following what was in the Hebrew manuscript, but I think more often than not what they're doing is trying to show how the poetry was laid out. And there's a guy who John D. Watts, who did a really good commentary on Isaiah, but he's done other work. He's really good about going into these Hebrew passages and showing you like the meter in each line. He'll tell you the meter here is
Mm.
343, line number 2, 235, 343. So
Mhm.
there are some actual exegetes that can go in here and give you the actual rhyme and meter and show you why it's poetic. But I don't see a whole lot of scholars really taking the time to do that. But that's usually what's
Hmm.
happening.
So our diva Jacob is essentially breaking out in song at the end of his life to go with a musical number.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay. So he is essentially like talking shit about his kids to their
Yeah.
faces, which is
Especially
insane.
Ruben.
So, yeah, Reuben, you are my oldest son, the child of my vigorous youth. You are first on the list of rank and honor, but you are as unruly as the waves of the sea, and you will be first no longer. For you slept with one of my wives. You dishonored me in my own bed. What? Did we know this? Has this come up
Yeah.
before?
That was
Am I
earlier
forgetting?
in the story. He slept with one of Jacob's concubines. I forget. I think it was Zilpah, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Reuben.
but it doesn't get a lot of play in the chapter that it shows up. It's not like a huge dialogue like Judah and Tamar. It's just a little
Mm,
tiny snippet. Um,
okay.
but yeah, as we talked about prior, that seems to be the excuse for why Reuben or the tribe of Reuben doesn't have a huge blessing or settlement in the land, obviously, because Reuben did these bad things to Jacob's wife or concubine.
Well, Simeon and Levi are two of a kind, men of violence. And then it says,
Yours says two of a kind.
uh-huh.
That's great.
I feel like my version is going to take a lot of poetic liberty here. I'm excited.
It's fun. It's a good time.
Yes, it says Simeon and Levi are two of a kind, men of violence. Oh, my soul, stay away from them. May I never be a party to their wicked plans. I mean, can you imagine your dad, like at the end of his life, being like, oh, my soul, stay away from you? Holy cow.
Yeah, like we're in a section of blessings, but this is straight up a curse. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine your dad's on his deathbed and he's like cursing you on his deathbed? What a horrible thing to sit through.
Right? That's terrible. I mean, I guess these are not good dudes, but still.
Right. Right, yeah.
And it says, "Cursed be their anger and their wrath, etc. I will scatter their descendants throughout the nation of Israel." So when I read that, I was like, okay, this is clearly talking about like the current state of affairs.
Yeah, because you remember Levi. Levi is where all the priests come from, and they don't get an inheritance. They have to be
Mm,
scattered throughout all Israel and live wherever they can. And so, but why is that? Well, I mean, because obviously, look at what they did.
they were weapons of violence.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is interesting. There's a competing narrative for why they're scattered throughout the different tribes when we get to Exodus. And
Okay.
so this is one reason why that we find in Genesis. Later, we'll see another reason.
Okay. Okay. Here comes Judah. So Judah, your brothers will praise you.
Keep it in your pants, Jacob. We know you like Judah, okay?
Okay, clearly like Judah wrote this. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
obviously.
Judah's like, "Oh yeah, dad hated this guy, hated that guy, but this is what he said to me cuz
Yeah,
I'm the best."
100% what happened.
You will defeat your enemies. All your relatives will bow before you.
Uh
Judah
huh.
is a young lion that has finished eating its prey. Like a lion, he lies down. Like a lioness, who will dare to rouse him? Fantastic. And then it goes on and on. He gets like four more verses about he's going to be a ruler and no one's going to mess with him. And he washes his clothes in wine because his harvest is so plentiful. He's basically saying, like, I blow my nose in $100 bills, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, which is wild because Judah wasn't really known for being like an agricultural mecca. Sure, they had some wine there, but let's
Oh my
let's keep the
gosh.
expectations where it should be. Judah is a really rocky, hard to grow territory.
Well, good thing he has this magic blessing. It's going to be fine.
True,
He,
the blessing fixed all that.
hmm It's all going
Sure.
to be okay now. Um,
Did you catch verse 12? What's your verse 12 say?
His eyes are darker than wine and his teeth are whiter than milk.
What a weird. What a weird thing to say about your child as you're doing deathbed blessings.
Judah's like, all right, dad said I was awesome and I'm gonna be in charge of all y'all. And he said I am handsome as hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Good job, Judah. We're proud. We're proud of you.
But I'm sure this is real history. Judah wasn't putting their hand on the scale at all when they wrote this.
Right. And clearly this is a God of justice, and each man was treated exactly fairly, and no favoritism was shown from this
Mm-hmm.
very just and perfect God.
Actually, that's such a good point because, okay, in the story that we're reading, right, things are they're explaining things due to the blessings and or cursings of Jacob, right? So like, let's imagine for a second that Jacob like blesses the wrong child, kind of like what happened with him and his brother. um like why is God expected to warrant that? Like if we fuck up and bless the wrong person and curse the wrong person, why wouldn't God just fix it? Why is God like, oh, it's
Mhm.
out of my hand, I gotta bless this guy now? Like, what a weird thing to believe in.
It's exactly why it's a spell,
Yeah, exactly,
you
it's just
know?
magic.
Right? Like if you do the wrong spell, it backfires, but it's too late. The spell's done. It cannot be undone.
Yeah, the words are out there. I already said abracadabra, and now it's what's gonna happen is gonna happen. You can't stop it.
That's right. Some of these are kind of fine. Like I guess Zebulun's
Hmm.
gonna hang out on the shore and have ships, which is cool.
Hmm.
Issachar is essentially a shepherd, right? Like he's
Yeah.
gonna and Dan is a governor, but then it's like at first it sounds like it's gonna be fine, and then it's not fine.
Not at
So
all.
Dan will govern his people like any other tribe in Israel, which sounds normal. He will be a snake beside the road, a poisonous viper along the path that bites the horse's heel so the rider is thrown off. And then verse 18, I trust in you for salvation, O Lord.
Yeah. What's the
What?
why? What? Wait.
So is he saying, look, Dan is a psychopath and he's going to mess up everybody. So like God help us because God saving the humans from Dan is the only thing I see fixing this situation. Like, is that what he's saying, or is it something totally different?
Yeah, it's difficult to figure out. So, because there's, first of all, there's two Dans. So
Oh,
it's like we have to talk about which one he's referring to. And when I say two Dans, what I mean is earlier in the Judges, Joshua and Judges, we learn that the tribe of Dan originally was supposed to be right next to the land of the Philistines. Which is ironic because it didn't really exist at the time of the Exodus, but that's neither here nor there. So that's where they were supposed to be, but they couldn't like win the wars. They were fighting these fights to settle the land. They didn't really succeed, and then they moved way up to next to the Arameans on the northeastern tip of Israel. Now, so what we find then, Dan is now the gateway between all the enemies just northeast of Israel, which means they have to go through Dan to get into Israel. And that's why like Isaiah 9 talks about how there will be no more gloom for the land of Zebulun, which is right next to Dan, because that's where all the enemies are coming through, is that northern territory.
oh,
So
okay.
is this suggesting that Dan is a snake by the road for foreigners to come through? Because that's one possibility. Or was he a
Oh,
snake to his own people? Because both of those are true. There's the Arameans at certain points would take control over Damascus. And at other points in time, the tribe of Dan would have had control over Damascus. It was like this border city that they fought over all the time. And then in the early days, prior to the Assyrian Empire coming in and crushing everybody, there was like these alliances made between the tribe of Dan and the Arameans. So there were moments where it seems like the tribe of Dan was like turning on his own brethren.
hmm.
And we kind of see a little bit about how that plays out in Isaiah chapter 7. when the Arameans and the Israelites make a pact together to depose the king of Judah. So we know for sure that like Dan was also probably wrapped up in some of these what do you call it when you're like a double agent?
Oh, um, I don't know.
Dan's
Treason,
a
espionage.
yeah, perhaps like he's a double crosser.
Hmm.
So it could be referring to that. It's just hard to know given the little bit of text that we have here.
Okay. Well, Gad does okay, but not great.
Which is
Asher does well.
which is interesting. You notice how they said Gad will be rated by Raiders, but they don't tell you who?
Yeah.
The funny thing is, we know from archaeology who the who is. It's
Okay.
the Moabites. If you read
Mm.
the Mesha Stele, the tribe of Gad specifically continuously made war against the Moabites, and that's who King Mesha was most upset with. Um, so it's interesting here. Like there's some real actual history happening in this chapter. It's just not very specific.
Hmm. Such an interesting way to write history, writing
Right?
it after the fact, but as if it's prophecy.
Yes, exactly. And that's why you've probably heard Christians be like, well, the Bible is true because it predicted these things. No, it was written long after those things already happened.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, and then again, it's a hard sell, right? Like I can't communicate that to a Christian because they'll say, You can't know that. You don't know that. You're wrong." And it's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Like I don't
You
know
know
what else
what,
to tell you.
Sarah, you're just proving the Bible true. It said there would be mockers and scoffers, and you're mocking and scoffing.
And a great falling away,
Obviously,
which is clearly me.
Bible's true. You know, I'm a Christian now. Sorry, Sarah. I don't know if I could talk to you anymore.
We can't be friends because we would be unequally yoked.
Oh,
It's
fuck. Not the yoke.
unacceptable.
Yeah, I think that's about right. That was a serious thing when I was a Christian, is making
Yeah.
sure if you ever, when I was a young Christian, if you ever started dating somebody, the first question out of their mouth is, are they Christian? That's
Mhm.
really like because if not, the pastor might have a word with you.
Oh yeah, what are you doing? You're playing with the devil if they're not a Christian.
Right.
This any millennial women will know this. Probably no one else, but millennial women who are in youth group. There is a book series that is written as like a teen series called the Christy Miller series, and it follows this high school girl trying to be a good Christian. And there is this scene in one of those books where there's a girl standing on a chair and then sort of like a full grown man standing on the ground next to her. And the youth pastor is trying to make an illustration and he tells the girl on the chair, he's like, okay, I want you to try and like pick up this guy and bring him up onto your chair. This man is much bigger than her, and so she cannot do it. And then he says, okay, now the reverse, big, strong man, I want you to pick up this woman and put her down on the ground. And he can do it easily. And it was a metaphor for like the girl on the chair was the Christian. She's higher up,
Oh
right?
no.
She's all like good and holy. And look how easy it is to be taken down to the level of non Christians and their evil and sin. But
Yeah.
bringing one of them up to you is almost impossible. So that's why you can't date non Christians.
That you know what? That is an example I've heard in multiple varieties. It's always the same. You can't bring the heathen up to your position, but they can always bring you down.
Yep.
I mean, that's a common thing, but it's interesting because that's not really in the Bible, by the way. According to the Bible,
Mm.
it's the exact opposite. If you are a heathen woman and you're married to a believer, you're essentially saved through that union. And it seems vice versa. In 1 Corinthians 7, it says, if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. In such a case, the brother or sister is not bound. It is to peace that God has called us. But then he says, wife, for all you know, you might save your husband. Husband, for all you know, you might save your wife. So there's this interesting stuff that we find in First Corinthians about like, hey, listen, if you're married to someone who's not a believer, it's okay, stay with them. So verse 12 says, if any brother has a wife who is an unbeliever and she consents to live with him, he should not divorce her. If any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce the husband, for the unbelieving husband is made holy through the wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy through the brother. So it's actually the opposite according to Paul.
Yep. I need to remember to talk about that verse more because I feel like that verse it completely implodes Christianity.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it ruins the entire thing because now it's no longer individualistic.
Mhm. Yep. If you can be saved just by marrying a Christian, all of this is a completely different system. Like everything you've
Yeah.
told me about the gospel is not correct.
Also, what about this? We know that the Bible doesn't have anything bad to say about polygamy. The only thing is like you're not supposed to have a ton of wives. But like if I'm a man, I'm like, listen, I need to save all these women. What prevents me from having say I have a church of 100 men? I'm like, listen, we need everyone here to marry 10 women. We're all going to save 10 women by marrying them. Theoretically, that's a according to the Bible, that's a viable way to get what like a thousand women saved right off the rip.
Yeah. I mean, it is, you um obviously the way that marriage is talked about in the Old Testament versus like the way it's talked about in I don't know, Ephesians or somebody is different and yet yeah, I don't I don't think I could dispute that.
I mean, I'm just reading the Bible and saying if the Bible is true, these are the implications, right?
Mhm. I imagine the apologetic is no, it doesn't mean save them through the act of marriage. It means if you stay married to them, you might influence them and then eventually they'll make a choice. And
Mm.
that's how it's happening. Like I'm guessing that's the apologetic with that verse.
To be fair, if I was a Christian, that would be my apologetic. I would say it's not a guarantee that they'll be saved. It's suggesting that through the union they can be saved. But obviously, the problem is that words have meanings, and Paul could have said they might get saved. He didn't say that.
Mhm.
But you're right. That's the apologetic, right? That's what I was probably gonna. If I was a Christian, I for sure would have said that.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, you can't face the reality of the text betraying itself like that, you know? That if you take that text seriously, then your whole world falls apart. So
Yeah,
I get it.
true.
Okay, we're almost there. I'm excited. So Naphtali is okay. They just produce a lot of fawns. Good job,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. Joseph gets a lot of verses.
Oh, for
So we
sure.
go on and on about how awesome Joseph is, but I think yeah, we've discussed why that would be. And then at the end, so Joseph gets all this hoopla. This last blessing, Benjamin is a wolf that prowls. He devours his enemies in the morning, and in the evening, he divides the plunder. Okay, did Benjamin write that?
Actually, I think this is a negative rip on Benjamin, and I would point towards Judges 19 through 21 with what happened with the Gibeonites. Because
Okay.
remember the story in Genesis 19 of the Sodom and Gomorrah episode? Well, there's a nearly identical episode in Judges 19 through 21 where the Gibeonites, which is a city in the tribe of Benjamin, surround the house of the Levite and his concubine and demand to have sex with the man all night. And that they end up having sex with his concubine all night, so much so that she dies. And then her body is cut up and sent to all the tribes of Israel.
Right.
so that he can prepare them for war, and then they go to war against the tribe that did all this nonsense. And then the other tribes swear, we will not give any of our women or our girls in marriage to these people, right? And then there's a whole nother situation. But so I'm seeing this probably, if I'm taking a stab at it, I'm seeing this probably as a negative remark, not a good remark. But
Mm.
it is true that the little tribe of Benjamin was pretty well known for being fierce. In fact, that's where Saul was from, King Saul, the first warrior
Oh,
king.
yeah. Well,
So,
there's an interesting edit in mine then,
oh yeah, what you got?
because yours says, in the morning devouring the prey, but mine says he devours his enemies in the morning.
Huh?
So that, I mean, that definitely has a different meaning, they're directing that in one direction versus another.
Yeah, I wonder how they came up with that. So like, let me see. I've got aid for prey, which is what I would expect in the Hebrew. Yours says enemy?
He devours his enemies in the morning.
Huh. That's weird. It reads, so the Hebrew reads exactly like my English. Baboker ya'achal aid, which means in the morning he will devour prey. I wonder why they stuck it. It's so weird because Hebrew has a really common word for enemy. Sonay is they could have just put that there. Like I don't understand why the NLT is changing a word. Like it's such a nonsensical change. Why would you change that?
Mhm.
So weird.
That is weird.
Who did
Yeah.
Genesis in the NLT? I gotta find out.
I wonder if it says, like, I don't know. I guess it wouldn't have my. It's interesting. All the people that were credited in this, um, let's see, design team, writers, notes and features. It doesn't actually say um translator though.
I'll have to check into it. The first NLT study Bible that was done, I knew a handful of the people that were involved in that project. I don't know about the latest one. I'll have to check to see who was involved. I'd be curious to see who it was. My experience with the NLT is that some books are just done better than others. Like I think my Old Testament professor in Bible college, I think he did Deuteronomy in the NLT. And it seems like who's ever doing the translation in these books, some of them are a little more fanciful than others. I'd be curious to know
Mm,
who was the scholar specifically that was tasked with doing the translation with Genesis. Because I bet if you read some of their other work, we'll find that they also seem to be a little bit interpretive.
yeah. It's so weird. The person that I know is the senior editor. Like
Oh,
Dave Veerman was one of my like he was my 5th grade, 6th grade Sunday school teacher.
all right. I think you've mentioned that before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So crazy. He's not a scholar, not even close.
You know,
He writes like commercial youth group books.
mhm. There's one thing I would say about Christian scholarship. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it seems to be common. If there's somebody in the scholarship circle who is willing to contribute, and what they're contributing, a lot of people agree with, they'll publish you amongst the rest of the scholars, even if you don't have any credentials. So I'm thinking of people like Wayne Grudem famously did like the most popular edition today of systematic theology. That doesn't have a PhD. He's got a seminary degree just like me. So, but like he is like the go-to guy if you want to buy a systematic theology book. So it is interesting how willing Christians are to prop some people up as scholars that aren't actually scholars. I would be uncomfortable with that. Like if somebody published me against all these other scholars and was saying that I'm in the same category as these scholars, I would find that to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I get that. Um, and I think you have particularly academic view of the Bible, and so maybe I do think there is a undervaluation of academic scholarship though, so it's like I can understand Christians thinking, well, sure, the scholarship's important, but this other stuff is equally important.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the general reviewer and of the whole block of Genesis through Deuteronomy was Daniel L. Block or Daniel I. Block. It doesn't say who. Okay, the contributing scholars for Genesis specifically was Andrew Smutzer and Alan Ross. So those are the two people that were tasked with working on Genesis. It looks like. But I don't know much about Ross, but I do know Daniel Block is really conservative. He's actually a pretty decent scholar, but that's probably why
Hmm.
they have him as like a general editor for the Pentateuch. So I would imagine we would say it's either Andrew Schmutzer or Alan Ross who was tasked with doing the actual commentary and translation of Genesis. So I'll look them up later sometime and see what I can find about the two of them.
Nice. All right. Um, you guys, we're almost there. We're about to end. I'm really pumped. It ends that Jacob specifies where he wants to be buried, and then in chapter 50, he actually finally dies.
Yeah.
Um, they have a period of mourning, and then Joseph asks Pharaoh if he can go travel somewhere to bury him. Pharaoh says yes. Um, they take his body to the land of Canaan, and there's a cave that Abraham had bought. And then such a weird. Um, so then it says in verse 15, but now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became afraid. Now Joseph will pay us back for all the evil we did to him. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before father died, he instructed us to say to you, forgive your brothers.
There's a secret message that Father gave us for you that we definitely didn't make up.
Oh my God. Brothers will be brothers, right?
Oh, the funny thing about this is like whoever wrote this obviously had brothers, and obviously this is like a real this is the real thing that they did.
Like, oh God, my brother's gonna kick my ass. Okay, look, dude, mom said you had to forgive me. I'm forgiven. Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As he's twisting his arm, Mom, he's doing it again. Real family dynamics here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, I appreciate the.
Oh boy.
Oh man. Okay, so then if works out, he's like, you guys are being idiots. It's fine. We're fine. At the very end, um, he says, so starting in verse 24, soon I will die, Joseph told his brothers, but God will surely come for you to lead you out of this land of Egypt. He will lead you back to the land he vowed to give to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is a weird premise to me because they were so like happy to come to Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and they're there right now of their free will. Unless they sold themselves to Pharaoh already, but that was a little, I don't know if his brothers actually did that. It seems like they didn't. So like if they want to live in Canaan instead of living here, especially after Joseph dies,
Mm-hmm.
why don't they just move to Canaan? Like why
They
do you have to
could right
wait?
now. Yeah.
Right? Like why do you have to wait for God to lead you out of Egypt? Like just if you don't want to live there, that's cool. Go move to Canaan.
Which, especially they had roots still in Canaan. I'm sure they probably owned some property still, and it wasn't so overtly populated that they couldn't just go back. I mean, that's what they did in the first place when they got there. So,
Mhm.
like, there's no good reason for them to stay in Egypt. The only reason we're given in Genesis is Genesis 15, where God says that they'll be slaves for 400 years in Egypt because the sins of the not the Amalekites, but the Amorites have not yet been completed. So God's like, well, I can't lead you into this land to murder all of them yet. Their sins haven't risen to a high enough level that I could justify you murdering all of them. Like, to be sure, you're going to murder all of them. I'm just saying that I need to let them really fuck up before I punish them. I need that pretext.
And not only, but in order, like, for you to wait for them to be bad enough, I'm going to let you be enslaved for 400 years. Like,
Yeah.
why not just have them wait somewhere else?
Couldn't God take them somewhere safe? Or he's so powerful, couldn't he make it so that they're in Egypt and they don't get enslaved? Like, couldn't they just visit the Pharaoh and be like, if, I'm God, I brought these people here, don't enslave them, they're friendly. God didn't do any of that.
Nope. Nope. It was clearly his plan, his perfect plan for them to be enslaved.
It's such a story that is written way after the fact from a powerful nation trying to retell their backstory of like the reason why we're here right now in this place is because God did all this stuff. We are meant to be here. God worked all this out, so we're the badasses at the top of this thing now. We had to go through some stuff to get here. It wasn't pretty, but this was all part of God's plan, obviously. I don't know how else you can read it. That's clearly, it's just what's happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And superimposing these qualities of God onto this story, it's just wild. In a Jewish tradition, do they ascribe like this all-knowing, all-powerfulness to God? Or is that more
So
of a Christian thing?
that's such a Christian thing. It's hard to talk about the Jewish people like they're a monolith because there's a pretty
Mm.
wide array of opinions. But most of the Jews that I've ever met and talked to, even Orthodox Jews, they don't think of this triomni God. Like, that's not what's in their mind. They're thinking of a God that's much more like what they're seeing in Genesis, where the God's maximally powerful, maximally great, but he's not like super omnipresent. He's not super omnipotent, knowing all things. In fact, you could probably, if you talk to a Jewish person right now, a lot of them would probably concede that they might be in the camp of more like open theism, where like God doesn't specifically know everything that's going to happen in the future, but he's trying to work everything out to still accomplish his goals. But he's doing
Mm.
it in unison with humankind. It's like a joint venture, basically. But that's not a max. That's not an omni god.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is fine. I think it makes more
Yeah.
sense, right? I mean, if we're reading this book and we're asking ourselves what makes more sense of it, I'm saying always much more prefer the Jewish view of this God than the Christian view of this God. The Christian view of this God seems so desperate and uneducated and doesn't really know the text.
Hmm. Yeah, it reminds me that like every time I see a comment where someone's like, "Hey, I've never read the Bible. I don't know where to start. What should I do?" Christians will always say, "Oh, start with the Gospels. Like read the Gospels, and then maybe later, make it through the New Testament, and then maybe after that, read some Psalms." And maybe never make it to like the minor
Right.
prophets.
It's really funny. You know how many people, and I'm sure you've seen this happen, and I'm sure there's lots of people that think it's going to happen to us, but you've seen so many people do like, I'm going to study the whole Bible. I'm going to go through, like Joel's doing it right now, and I know enough about Joel to know that Joel reads Bible is going to read the entire Bible, but there's so many people in the atheist and non-atheist community that has sat down and said, I'm going to study the entire Bible, and they literally only get to Exodus. It's so common. Because it's a big, daunting book. And once you get past Genesis and Exodus, man, you really got to start learning geography. You got to start learning all kinds of fun stuff. And if you don't have somebody with a little bit of education with you, it can be overwhelming. Do you remember, Sarah, the first time you tried reading the Book of Kings?
No, I have no idea when that would have been. I
The
don't know.
It's been a bit for me. The first time I tried reading the Book of Kings, I bit off way more than I could chew. I was probably 21, 22.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I like stories. I like narratives. The Book of Kings got lots
Mhm.
of narratives. I'm just going to read those stories. I couldn't tell you. Like, I got through 3 chapters and I was like, oh my gosh, I need like 5 notebooks to remember any of this stuff. I don't know what any of these cities are. I don't know who any of these people are. It's so like if you're a new Bible reader, like I get it. It's super hard
Yeah.
to read some of this and make sense of it.
I have all the empathy in the world for people not reading it. It's a huge book. It's not super fun in most of it. Um, the the funny or interesting or weird thing though is that the Christians who insist it's true and insist it's perfect, but have not read it all.
Yeah. How is I am baffled. I think my impression is this. I think Christians are told that something is true and they'll stand at it. They're like, I'm standing for truth. They're just taught from a young age that this is the truth and you just have to accept it no matter what the evidence is. But like, none of these people actually read the book. It's like, I don't know, read the book before you demand that it's true. What kind of a crazy world if I said the Quran is true, you just have to accept it. You don't have to read it, just know that it is true. Like what a weird, what a crazy expectation. It's like never demand that something is true that you haven't read. What a massive failure setup.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. It's and I think if people were to sit with that, um, the whole thing would fall apart because you would say, "Wait, why do I think it's true?" And I've had a lot of these conversations, and try as you might, the vast majority of people will, with a little bit of pushing, will end up saying, um, "Because it feels true, and because someone told me."
Yes.
Like that's what it's going to boil down to at the end is
Hmm.
it feels true and someone told me it was true. And
Right.
that's it.
That's it. Yeah. It's vibes, baby. Vibes.
Yes.
To be fair, can we give the Mormons a little bit of respect for recognizing that early on and making it like their main mission is to go to people's homes and ask them to get the vibes and come back and report? I mean,
I will give them credit for having like essentially a test, like it might not be a very well controlled experiment, but it is an experiment
yeah.
nonetheless.
Uh-huh.
Um and it has a specific outcome versus I think with Christians they'll say just like God will reveal the truth or, he's going to change your heart or, you'll know it's true. But it's so vague,
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
with the Mormons, like, no, it's a specific event that is supposed to occur. I do appreciate that. Yeah.
It's brave too to challenge a person you don't know and say, if you pray, God will give you the feelings. He'll give you the unction or whatever you might call it. It's bold. It's bold.
It is. And it's something Christians will not do.
No, the Christians are the first person to tell you, my God does miracles, but you'll never get to see it, and I'll never ask.
Don't you dare ask for one. And if you do ask for one and he doesn't do it, it's because he's smarter than you.
It's on
So
you. Yeah.
there.
Oh boy.
All
Oh,
right. We have officially finished Genesis. I am delighted we have come to the end. Oh my God.
yeah, we did it.
Yeah. All right. So thank you to everyone who is listening and made it this far with us. And so we will be back next week beginning a whole new book of the Bible. So, as always, Justin, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and we'll be looking forward to Exodus next.
All right.